certificates at that point were similar to the ones that we have now. So we were offering, computer network technician, nursing programs, CNA, auto, diesel, everything that we were doing before as iTech is still alive and well. We've just added to it. So as CEI, we had the ability, with becoming the community college, to add the associate degree option. And in doing so, it allows our local students to be able to complete their first 2 years of college at home, or part of it even online and part of it in high school. And that's the dual credit piece. That was never something that we were able to do as iTech, but as a community college, we are able to offer high school students dual credit options. So we call it early college, but they can essentially complete education that's required for a technical certification. So that can be done with their advanced opportunity dollars, which is the funding that you all know comes from Idaho. So ideally, we would love to be a one-year institution for most students. So let them do all of their pre-work that isn't their hands-on work, so their gen eds that they need for certifications and associate degrees, and then have that paid for through advanced opportunity dollars, and then come to us for their last year. And in doing so, we can really help people to walk away without very much debt, if any at all, because we are the least expensive option in Idaho at $129 per credit hour. So, first and foremost, I would say that we focus on an individual's economic development, meaning giving our students the opportunity to better themselves in whatever way it is, whether it's popping in for a workforce training program or a community education program, or whether it's actually proceeding and getting an industry recognized certification or an associate degree. And in doing that, we're getting these folks the ability to earn a family wage living. And for a lot of people, that's just not their reality right now. So first and foremost, it's doing that for our students. And then of course, it's natural that we're developing a talent pipeline, because we want to make sure that our students have great jobs to go to once they're trained with us. Okay, so this is a little bit, some of this I've already covered a little bit. So we have some main goals that we focus on. So training and education. Training and education at the community college is open to anyone. That means even people who don't have a high school diploma. So, I mean, you have to be 16 years or older to come into our workforce programs, but anybody can come in. If someone wants to go to the community college and they don't have a high school diploma, we help them get a GED, and then we help them get ready so that they can attend classes and succeed at the college. Of course, retraining is part of workforce training with existing employees. A lot of times those are directly created with employers locally. We want to keep Idahoans in Idaho. So, we're looking to affect that outflow of millennials that we're seeing. We want to help attract new companies into the region. And of course, the way to do that is to demonstrate that you have an institution that can partner with industry and have a great pipeline available. And then of course, K-12. We do a lot of work with K-12 through all kinds of methods. With the younger students, it's generally camps and other types of classes. Grades 9, 10, 11, 12, we're doing the dual credit programs. And so we're, as I said, trying to get them into our doors and out of our doors as quickly as possible. So I thought I'd just cover briefly some highlights from this last year. In spite of COVID, most institutions' enrollments were actually down. Our enrollment was up 11%. Our enrollment has been up every single year consistently since we opened the doors as the community college. there was clearly a pent up demand for people who live near the college and who were wanting education, but maybe couldn't afford to go to a university, couldn't afford to go beyond their community. And so we're seeing that great increase in people getting certifications and other education. Our early college or our dual credit was up 34% this past fall. We have a director of early college who has been doing a phenomenal job getting into the high schools and making these students and parents aware of the essentially free money that they have and the ability to get a jump on their college programs. One of the things we're really proud of, when we opened our doors in the fall of 2017, we had 35 students in our nursing program, and we knew that was a really important pipeline for this region. We were very fortunate to get a gift from Bill Make, and we expanded. Some of you may have seen our nursing simulation lab, which really helped open up our faculty's ability to be creative in expanding our nursing program and getting people into our hospitals. So we've gone from 35 to 200. Really huge success story. You don't have to take that from me, actually. The Nursing Accreditation Association came in and was very impressed with what we've done. We are very focused on the cyber initiative because it's excellent jobs. So for example, we've been creating this high school pathway where you can go all the way from high school through master's degree. Do you have to go all the way from high school to master's degree? Nope, you do not. You can come to us and just get an industry recognized certification, which is a 2-year certification in associates in applied science. And then you can also take just workforce classes. There are a lot of people who don't have any sort of certification at all that just come into our workforce training department and take classes. So we want to give people the opportunity to come on and off or come in and out of the educational process as they can to be able to get further along and make more money. So that's just one example. And then we were asked by the state of Idaho to, as we're all higher ed institutions, to participate in the Online Idaho statewide initiative. This is open to everybody in Idaho to be able to take courses. We felt very responsible for making sure that we got as many as possible up and running first. We had more than any other community college, offered more than any other university. We had 9 classes up and running in January of this year, allowing anybody to take those courses at the least expensive price in Idaho. So really a benefit for Idahoans. So WTCE is our workforce training and community education department. As you might imagine, this department did not do as much in COVID because a lot of their training is one-on-one. So in spite of that, they still affected over 14,000 learners in 2020. So over 10,000 employer contract training, almost 3,000 workforce skills. Those are what we call the just-in-time training, where a company comes to us and says, "This is what I need," and we make it happen. And then finally, a little over 800 in our adult enrichment. That's everything from knitting to culinary, whatever they may be offering at that time. Some of you may be familiar with our Yellowstone Training Center. We have taken over part of the old Melaleuca building that the Boy Scouts own right now. This is a place where we have our hub for our workforce training department. We have a lot of rooms there that we can utilize for that training. And then we've established a really nice learning center for cyber and computer network technician. And that's really waiting for future tech to be built, and that cyber and computer network technician training will come over to future tech. So the vision for the Regional Skilled Labor Center, it was about 1.5 years ago, Senator Lent came to President Amen and me and suggested that we should look at a career technical education high school for the region. And I know you all are aware that District 93 already has CTE, so does District 91. So we were talking about doing a collaborative project with a high school. And essentially, we convened the school districts as well as industry partners, as well as our legislators in a meeting in December of 2019 to explore this idea. And by the end of it, it became very clear to me that a high school is a great idea, maybe somewhere down the road. But right now, we need to focus on training for anyone who's 16 years and older. We want to make sure that a 52-year-old feels as comfortable coming into this training as a 16-year-old does. So we wanted to make sure that it was more open and more accessible. So that was the plan that we laid out. Again, you do not have to have a high school diploma to take these training classes in workforce. But you can bet that if we get someone through the door and they don't have a diploma, we're going to be pointing them toward how they can also get a GED. One of the other reasons that I felt it was really important to make this 16 years and older is I'm sure you're all aware, we have about 23% of our high school students in Idaho who start high school and never finish. And so we're working right now very diligently on trying to come up with a comprehensive way to contact those students or their families Idaho-wide to make sure that they understand what their options are in terms of getting a GED and going on to get some sort of education that gets them out of a dead-end job. So again, back to the vision here, this would be workforce training related. This is not a building where someone's going to walk away with an industry certified or an industry certification, meaning like a 2-year associate of applied science. They're going to walk away from this with the kind of training that they need that is in demand by our local employers to get a job right now. This is not training for union people. They've got their own thing going on. This is probably something that will be more backfill for construction and other training that's established by the task force that I understand is being put together. So given the demand with construction, we have started looking at that first. We have noted that there's a huge demand there. We can do pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship classes that lead someone to the union if that's something they choose to do. Of course, safety courses, but I've listed out some of the programs here that we are ready to start getting underway. And as a matter of fact, we have some carpentry classes and a couple other things that we could get underway in the fall if we're able to get access to some place to get those classes done. And then finally, as I had mentioned before, we'll want to make sure that when we do get people through the door, we point them in the right direction to be sure that they get they have a high school credential, as well as any other opportunities that they may need, including English as a second language as an example. It's really very exciting opportunity. I want to go back to that for one more second. One other thing that I want to mention in relation to the Regional Skilled Labor Center, we started this conversation and kind of got the ball rolling, and then we're fortunate enough to be included in this discussion with the building that's already owned by the county and the city. But I want to be clear that our goal was to make sure that this training is available, particularly for Eastern Idahoans, but for Idahoans in general, so that we can get those folks regionally into the jobs that are coming and not have as many people that have to come in from outside of our community. So if that means that someone else runs this building and we come in and help with training that we have when it's necessary, we're fine with that. We're not worried about having our name on the building or this being some extension. I will say we are very experienced with this type of training in our workforce training department. We of course have the administrative capabilities. So I have a feeling when the task force goes through their iterations that it will probably make sense to have CEI run these programs and run it out of that building and register students, et cetera. But I know I'm speaking for the president of CEI as well when I say, we just want to make sure this happens, and we'll do anything as part of that, whether it's just training or whether it's helping in a much bigger way. So I think that's important to know.
Can I interrupt you to ask a question?
Yes, please. In fact, the next thing is I was going to bring you up to speed on Future Tech. So if you have any other questions right now, let's go ahead and I'll be happy to answer.
So I need to understand your regional skilled labor center. Is that the building that we've heard in the news that you're working with the city of Idaho Falls on, and that property next to you?
No.
Okay.
So maybe it makes sense to go on to Future Tech. So there's two different major projects going on right now. The biggest project is Future Tech. Future Tech is specifically for certification training. So for someone to get an associate of applied science in specific, highly technical fields. That is for someone who has a high school diploma, who either comes to us directly from high school or comes with some, early college, and they're going through the process of completing a credential. The Regional Skilled Labor Center, we are hoping to have in the building that you all have. If you're asking about the property that the city owns north of us, is that what you're asking about?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we opened that conversation back in October or November with the city, because at that point we were not aware of any existing buildings that might be available to host this Regional Skilled Labor Center. And so we opened up that conversation thinking, heck, if nothing comes through with a building, we may need to just put down a big cement slab and steel walls someplace. And so it made sense to look at purchasing that property to put it over in that north of campus area. Now that we have the potential to have an existing building and we can get these programs up and running much more quickly, I don't see any reason that we would want to build another facility to accommodate this. I don't think that makes sense.
Okay, that answered my question. I wanted to make sure there wasn't any conflict between those two.
No, there's not. If we do proceed with that, with purchasing any property from the city, it would really just be in a long-term, like 10 to 20 year outlook plan with no immediate plans for development on that property. So that's where that stands. Okay. Do we have a few minutes to talk about Future Tech?
Can I ask a question first? Because you've referred a few times to that building. Which building are you referring to? Because
I have not. It's been kind of kept quiet, and to be honest with you, I don't even think I have the building address. I think it's BT. It's a BEA, I believe.
It's the Bonneville County Technology Center that you're talking about, and it is not owned jointly by the Bonneville County and the city of Idaho Falls. It is owned solely by Bonneville County.
Oh, okay.
With a MOU for the use of the building currently.
Ah, I see. Okay.
I guess that's why I was a little bit confused.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I might have been confused. I thought it was a co-ownership, so I apologize.
No. Okay.
Any other questions on this before I cover Future Tech?
Question I've got, and maybe Brian knows this a little better. Is that just the BCTC or the Innovation Center as a joint project?
Currently, we're only talking about the Technology Center building.
Okay.
Okay, so the other thing I had a little news coverage lately is Future Tech. So this is where I was talking about us creating this building that will meet the demand for technicians. So we have over 3,000 before any projects were announced regionally for the lab or for Fluor or FBI or anybody else. Prior to that, we already had a projection of 3,000 technicians needed in this area through 2026. Now that demand, of course, has gone on even higher. So we had started to talk about how do we train Idahoans to get them in these jobs again, to keep Idahoans in place and getting these great jobs. So in general, you're talking about somebody going from a minimum wage to $27, $28 an hour as a technician when they finish their program, with benefits. I mean, huge difference. That would make a huge difference in somebody's family and abilities. And of course, those are the goals that have been talked about for many years by the state, to make sure we're getting as many people certified and into workforce as possible. We're going to go ahead and make sure we have conference space that's sufficient for the community as well. We don't have any conference space for the college for our teams to meet, so we'll add that, but it would also be available to the community. And we are the only institution in Idaho that do not have a career technical education center. So as I mentioned, this is for technology careers. So energy, environment, and technology, great opportunities here. Cyber, our energy systems program, nuclear technician, a lot in technology, as well as now we're looking at battery, agri-tech, and agribusiness, as well as solar. And this would also be equally used by our workforce training department. So you can imagine this building will be up and running and being used in the evenings and then all day as well. And we'll want to make sure that whatever we're building, and this is how we've been planning it, is something that can change as we need to, because technology is changing every day, as you know. So it's probably going to end up being about an 88,000 square foot building. That's where we are right now. We're figuring around 36 million for construction. As you all know, this is changing about every 5 minutes, how much supplies are. But so we're keeping a pulse on that. We already secured $2.4 million from the state of Idaho and the Economic Development Administration for planning and design, and that's what I'm going to show you in a minute. We've got the teams in place, and we are intending to start with site prep in the fourth quarter of 2021. And the reason for that is we need this project to open in the fall of 2023 to get people in so they can get out and get these jobs that are coming in that 24-25 time period. So I'm currently working on additional construction funding, but we're about a third of the way there right now. So you were asking the questions about where that other property is. So when you're looking at campus, and this is kind of an older master plan map, but you can see the existing buildings in red, and then Future Tech is going to go right here. So it's essentially like across from Walmart, but this is everything on this side of that canal, I know you all know this, is already owned by the college. And that is the only place that we're planning to do any construction at this point, is on property we already own. This property is city property. The architect who did this master plan some time ago put potential buildings on there for future consideration. Those are imaginary. Those are not anything that we have, even talked about, frankly. But I wanted to show you where specifically the Future Tech building will be. So
could you go back to that for a second?
Sure.
I had a question that I'm trying to remember. Back many years ago, the part that you say is the environmental park, that is owned by the college, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is. So it's just this kind of small strip. It's a long strip. There, we talked about some different things there that, that I thought it was very creative of this architect who did the master plan to call it an environmental park. Hopefully it's going to be something to do good for education. But, we've talked about a lot of different things there. It's very difficult to access from the campus because you're crossing 25th. You know, that's something that has to be considered. So it almost has to be a standalone type thing if we ever use it. So any other questions? I do have the plan, the overview of the Future Tech plan if you're interested in seeing it, and or a fly through. We've made great progress in the last month and a half with our architects. So would you like to see that, or do you feel like you've got enough information to go on for now?
I feel like I've got enough for now. Because I agree with you. It changes every 5 minutes. Projects like this are going to be difficult to figure out how to fund.
Yeah.
I would like to circle back to your regional skilled labor center. You mentioned that you would have classes that you would like to see go in there this fall. You know, you're ready to pull the switch and start, correct?
Right. Our understanding is that may not be possible because we had been told that there was possibly some space available, but the most recent thing that I was informed was that it is full to the brim.
And
If
that's
the space, that doesn't seem very likely for us to be able to use that space, you know.
that's correct, unless it was in alternate space that the county owns. Which key classes are you talking about that are most critical right now?
I think the construction classes are the most critical ones. I would have to ask our workforce training team which ones they have planned. I know they have at least one, if not two, ready to go. So the curriculum is done and they're ready to be able to put it out for enrollment. But as I said, we just don't have anywhere right now to hold it because you have to, this would be something where you would need to be able to fit some bigger pieces. So whether it's trusses or whatever it is that they're working on, they did need more of like I'm going to say garage type space, for lack of a better term at the moment.
So how many square feet is needed?
If for the fall, for just to get started, they're telling me 5,000 to 6,000 square feet.
5,000 to 6,000. Okay.
Yes.
And how much is classroom? Sorry, Commissioner.
Oh, if I remember, when we put that together, there are some of those that they called high bays.
Yes, correct.
Those would probably be needed if you're going to do things like trusses.
Yes. So not all the classes require a high bay. I'll find out and I will get back to you on which classes they have finalized.
So, commissioners, I'm thinking of an alternate property where we also have high bays.
Anne Marie, did you hear my question?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
How much of that needed space for the construction class is classroom and how much of it's bay space? I'm assuming they don't want the whole class in a bay.
Right.
So
ideally,
how much is each?
Ideally, we would have in both classroom space as well as the space to work.
Right.
However, if it's not a formal classroom space, that we can make that work, or we can do the physical parts in a high bay, and then we can actually hold the classes in a classroom that, either at Yellowstone Training Center or on campus.
Is this demand for these classes being driven by employers in the region that need those skills for employees?
Yes. So
Yeah.
our local builders, as you know, historically have had difficulty in finding people to do this work. And so we're looking to help them with their current need. And then obviously the long-term plan is to make sure that when all of these new projects come to Idaho Falls and the region that are having these huge construction demands, I think it's logical that the more experienced people are going to get siphoned off from our small builders and contractors to these bigger projects. And then they're going to need, even more people to backfill into their labor pool.
So what dollars are going to be used then to support the building, the facility? A portion of that $139 tuition or $129, does that go then for facilities, I assume? Would it be a rental to the county, or how do you see that?
So for these classes, they would generally be workforce training, which are usually fee-based. Not the credit classes are $129 per credit hour, but almost all of this would be workforce training. Those fees are generally set by the demand, and a lot of times for us, you'll have employers who actually pay for the training, pay CEI for the training, so that their employees can go to the next level or do whatever type of work it is that they need done. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
It does. That answers my question.
But I will tell you this, that we were very relieved and we're very hopeful this building could work out with the county, and because of the fact that the types of fees that we get, we went out and looked at everything that was available commercially. So at the time it was, Smith's, Cal Ranch. Some of those have already been filled, and other facilities. We couldn't support. The math doesn't add up at our low fees. It doesn't add up for us to support a triple net lease in one of those facilities, even at a very favorable lease rate. Because we don't charge very much.
And I understand that, and that there's a good component to that, but regardless, the facility has got to be paid for in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that's going to be through an increased fee or with the employers,
Right.
providing more to support it. But if we were to make this other building available, somehow we've got to be able to maintain the building and
Sure.
and turn the lights on. So there would have to be, I guess that's just something that we're going to have to work out to determine if the amount we would need does fit within your current fee-based structure.
Right. And I think too, for the smaller facility for the fall, that would be probably a little different question even than the larger facility for long term. I would like to think that it maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, I was under the impression that there's a task force that's being pulled together of employers in the area to really explore more widely the types of training that is needed here in the region. And I would like to think that those employers, it being in their best interest to get employees trained, would want to participate and make this happen.
That's what we're hopeful. Yes. And you're correct. Your information is correct. And that's going to be the primary responsibility. The first responsibility of the task force is to determine if there is a business plan that will support it, if it makes dollars and cents. So.
Right.
Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Oh, we appreciate the update. I think it's helpful to understand because it sounds like there's some information out there that may not have been very accurately given. So.
Yes. And please feel free to contact me at any point. I'm always happy to provide you with any information.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for your time.
Can you give us your contact information, maybe an email address?
I sure will. It's Ann, A-N-N, Marie, I'm sorry, Ann dot. Now I'm gonna have to look up my own email address.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that has to do that.
Because I don't ever email myself. I'm like second guessing myself here. So ANN Marie, so Anne Marie, all one word, .Peters, PETERS @CEI.edu. I'll put it in the chat too, because I think this is you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, that'd be great if it's in the chat.
Yes, and I can send, would you like me to just send Ruby the information about the classes for the fall?
That would be great. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much for making the time. And I know how busy you are and how much responsibility weighs on your shoulders. So if there's ever anything that we can do to be helpful, you know, we are the community college, so we're happy to jump in and be helpful in any way.
Well, this certainly has been for me. So thank you for the information. I'm sure we'll be working together on this project in the future.
Great. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time, Anne Marie. Appreciate the opportunity to gain a little more understanding about the programs that you're hoping to bring into the college.
Well, thank you. And, you know, I just thought of something. I am doing an overview of future tech for some of our industry partners in the region on Thursday, and it's a virtual or in-person opportunity. I can send that information to Ruby, and if you care to, we would be more than happy to have you join us, and that would be an opportunity to really see where those plans are and how we're progressing.
What time is it on Thursday?
It is at 4 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate it if you'd send that over.
Absolutely.
Say this can be online as well as in person.
Yes, yeah. So
Where's your in-person presentation going to be?
it's going to be at CEI, and if you know where the administration building is, where the cafeteria is, so building 3, Christopherson building, in our boardroom, which is basically just a big room off of our cafeteria. Fancy name for not such a fancy place.
Mhm.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.